Welcome to EdUp Curriculum. I am your host, Nicole Poff. I know I always say that I'm excited about our guests, but today I'm so excited you guys don't even know, because if you know anything about me, you know that I am a bleeding heart for students. And so today I am joined by a group from Westchester University, and they love students too, and they love faculty, and they are doing really great work to help the two work better together. And so thank you guys so much for being here. If you could, just before we hop in, just introduce yourselves. Who are we talking to? What do you want to share with us?
I'll start. My name is Dr. Tammy James, and I am currently in the provost office as a faculty associate for student engagement and retention. However, for the last 25 years, I was classroom faculty in the Department of Public Health Sciences, where I taught curriculum and instruction and school health education. However, I've been in the provost office now for the past 2.5 years.
I'm Dr. Tom Pantazis. I am an assistant director with the Teaching and Learning Center focused on reflective practice and scholarship. And I've been here at Westchester for 10 plus years now.
Hi, Nicole. I am Naomi Nyanungo. Oh, I guess I should say Dr. Naomi Nyanungo. And I am Associate Provost for Learning and Teaching Innovation at Westchester University of Pennsylvania. I understand we always need to say of Pennsylvania because there's another Westchester University somewhere in the world. I have been at this university for close to 3 years now.
Well, thank you guys so much for being here. I've been trying to figure out, there is so much to unpack here. It's so much goodness. So let's just start with, what are we going to be talking about today? There's this really cool project, and we're going to walk it back later about like where the idea came from. But at kind of the highest level, let's give a very high overview of what we are talking about today. So you guys all came to me really kind of excited about this initiative at your university, which brings the students into the classroom in a way we don't typically see, right? Typically, when we're thinking about how the student voice impacts the student or impacts the classroom, we use like end of course surveys, student satisfaction surveys. Those are all really meaningful. But you guys bring the students into the classroom in a radically different way. Can you talk about how students actually give feedback into your classrooms?
You want me to start? I can
Please.
start. So if we think about it, what are students here to do at a university? They're here to learn, right? And they didn't start learning when they got to university. They've been doing this all through their schooling career. And so we capitalize on this idea of students as experts in learning, and we bring them in to classrooms. Our program matches two students with a faculty member. The student will go sit in a class session. I should mention here that the student is not currently taking the course that that faculty member is teaching. They are there just to observe the teaching and talk about their insights and provide the professor with some feedback based on their expertise as learners. So that's what the program is. I am going to stop here and let Tom and Tammy fill in the gaps that I left out.
I think you did a pretty good job encapsulating it. I think one aspect of the program that's really interesting is it's mutually beneficial across all parties. Students benefit from the observation experience, from getting to know a faculty member over time. They benefit from the community of them together. We bring all the students together once a week to do a little bit of training to help them understand how to handle difficult situations that might arise in terms of how do I say faculty member might not be doing quite as good as they might think they are. And then they get some community together as well. But then we also benefit from these opportunities to hear what's going on in the classroom, both from student perspective and the faculty perspective, as we kind of sit in the middle of that group. So there's a lot of benefits in this program that go in all different directions, which I think is one of the things I really appreciate about it.
We should mention that our faculty is all volunteer. Although we do have an application process, they all come into the program with the spirit of wanting to be better educators. And that is the goal. We have faculty from their first year at Westchester University teaching to more than 20 years. And they all have come through the program with takeaways that they're able to get in real time and feedback that they're able to get on a weekly basis and make those changes. I think to your point, as a faculty member, the way our structure is currently, we don't get that kind of feedback until the end of the semester. We look to implement some of the suggestions through course surveys and things like that for the following year. But to be able to do that now, every week, is just so beneficial for a faculty member, but also the students, because it's really given our students a voice. I think this takes the whole concept of student engagement to another level that we haven't seen currently on college campuses, especially when it comes to the curriculum and its core, which is the core.
Absolutely. And I know the answer to this, but for faculty, it's volunteer. On the student side, how do they become engaged in this process?
So it is a job, and we do recruit. But I would say one of the ways that we try to bring people on board, try to bring students on board, is that we're intentional about going after students who've had some academic struggle and have overcome that academic struggle. We think they bring a really valuable perspective to the conversations and a set of experiences that can really help the faculty grow and learn. And another component to it as well is that we seek out students, work study students, which is one of the ways that we can fund this process.
We had when we started the program, and I should say that this program, while unique, it is following a tradition that now there are many universities that have something similar. For those who are interested in looking it up, they're calling them pedagogical partnerships. I think the last we looked, they're like some form of pedagogical partnerships in at least 100 universities across the world. And they look different at every different institution. What I was going to say is when we first started hiring students for this, we had one of our first lessons. So we posted the ad in the usual job recruitment type platforms that we have at the university. Not a single application. We talked to students, not a single application. And then Tammy, I think you talked to a student. You were like, this looks like a great opportunity. Why are you not applying? And the student said something like, but they're asking for a resume and a cover letter and I don't have one. So we sat down and we're like, why are we asking for those things? It turns out that those usual structures, right? Like we asked for them because we thought it's a job and this is what you do when somebody's applying for a job. You ask for a resume and a cover letter, not realizing that for some of our students, that's a major barrier. So that was our first lesson, that if we want to engage students, then we need to make sure that we're minimizing the barriers here and only asking for things that we need. So now our application process is something really simple. You basically say, yes, I'm interested. You send an email to Tom, and then Tom has a short interview with the student. And so that was one of our, I think, a big lesson for us that, oh, yes, this is a job, but not every job has to have all these big stakes that people usually put on there. We didn't even need it. Like, we're not going to look at the resumes. We just wanted to know that you were a student and that you were able to do this.
I love that for so many reasons because you guys are really making sure that you're getting the perspective that you need, right? Yes, it's great to have the perspective of the student who's sitting in the front row with an A, but we also need the perspective of the student who's sitting in the back, right? Who is really trying to understand the hidden curriculum, who's trying to understand how to navigate the course, the way the instructor is talking, the way the information is presented. That's a really, really important perspective that is not oftentimes heard. And so, A, you recognize that you wanted that voice, and then B, you recognized we need to remove the typical barriers to bring these people in, right? If we put this hurdle up, we're only probably going to get the perspective of the one student whose voice we hear quite a bit. We want to hear behind the hurdle. We want to hear this voice. So I love just the approach that you guys have taken. One question I had is, where did this initial idea come from? Tell me the story of this wasn't a thing, right? X amount of years, this pedagogical partnership was not a thing within Westchester University. How did it come to be a thing?
Oh, it came from different angles. I first came across pedagogical partnerships at a pod conference. I've always been interested in, as an educational developer, I've always been interested in getting student experiences to inform the work that we do, right? So we work with faculty primarily as educational developers, and we hear a lot about faculty experiences, but we don't get to hear directly from students often. So I've always been interested in how can we make that? How can we make room for that? How can we make space for that in our work as educational developers? So when I came across this notion of pedagogical partnerships at a pod conference, and a plug here for the pod network, it is the biggest conference for educational developers in the US. I was immediately taken by it because it was a way that we could do this thing that I've always wanted to do. Then I came to Westchester University. I had, by the way, had not yet started my job at Westchester when I came across this idea. So shortly after that, I started my job at Westchester University, and I sit in Tom's office and we're just getting to know each other. And Tom says to me, "Oh, so you were at the conference. Did you hear anything interesting?" And I say to Tom, "Oh, I heard about this program, Pedagogical Partnerships." And Tom said,
I said I had been thinking about doing something like that too. I had been at my alma mater maybe 6 months prior to that, which is William and Mary, down presenting on my dissertation, but I was also touring their teaching and learning center. And they had a program, not, it was a pedagogical partnership program. It wasn't like ours. And I just heard a little bit about it. So the idea had been put into my brain. And then after that, between when Naomi came and that experience, I had seen some things talking about it just in different social media channels that I pay attention to. And so this idea had started to ruminate a little bit. And I was interested in seeing if it was something we might explore here. So after you started, there was a provost's engagement grant application process, and we actually put this program forward for that grant and didn't get it.
we didn't get it then, but a colleague sent me this. I think I'd talked about pedagogical partnerships, and there was an institute or conference, they called it, for pedagogical partnerships in Iowa. And a colleague sent it to me, and I applied and I got accepted to it. And it was fantastic. It was really, really good. They had people who had these programs at the universities. They had some student partners there. They had some faculty partners. And then they had people like me who were thinking about starting a program. So it was a really, really good institute. I came back, that was in June 2023. I came back and I was like, "Oh, we got to do this. We got to do this." And so then I wrote to Tammy and I said, Tammy, I have a really cool project. I want to talk to you about it. And so then I called Tammy and she said,
Let's do it.
Tammy actually said, "Oh, that sounds radical.
I did say
Let's do it."
did say that. But what I loved about the idea was in my work on our campus around student engagement, student success and retention, since I had moved into this space where I was now doing this full time and working with students who were on academic probation, and meeting with them and talking to them and hearing about some of the barriers. One of the things that continued to come up were things that were occurring in the classroom within the curriculum. And so for me, I'm listening. And while I am faculty, I didn't have the platform to share these kinds of things with our faculty. And I thought this was really an awesome opportunity for this partnership for our students, because I'm thinking of one of our students that work with our program now would sit in my office and say, Dr. James, if I could tell my faculty this. And I thought, well, this is the program then, because now you can have the opportunity to do that. And so one of the things I do want to add that strikes me is work I've done for years with school districts. And I remember there was an article that was published that always stuck with me around academic success and academic achievement. And it talks about we often, as institutions, put the burden on the backs of students. So when students are not performing well, we typically add another remedial course or additional supports for students. And we don't look at what's happening in the classroom with the curriculum, with the instructor, with the climate, all of those kinds of things that occur in the classroom. And that really stuck with me for many, many years. And so as a health educator, that's one of the things that we work with school districts. I've had the opportunity to work with school districts on for years. And so to be able to do this with this partnership and have those students sit in that class and provide that immediate feedback to faculty is just, it's incredible. And it's just, again, it's a huge value for both the student and the faculty.
I love it so much. And I mean, you're right that a lot of times we place the burden on the student, right? Like we're going, guys, we have a sixth grader now. We're going through it in sixth grade. This is a big shift from fifth grade to sixth grade. It's hard. And what I have found, our kid is gifted. She is like so smart. She is struggling big time. And, math is a subject she's always really strong with. And she's not doing well in math. And I'm like, this is a girl who really gets this. She is struggling. But it's that kind of same mentality of like, well, it's on you to figure out what you got to do to be better, not how are we delivering the instruction at the front of the room, and are these worksheets actually preparing you for what's going to be on the exam? Like there's really not a lot of reflection back on the teacher. It's just the student. It's just, this is the way it is. You figure out what you got to do to get through this class. And so as we're going through this, I'm like, wow, it starts early, because I feel that in higher ed, right? I feel in higher ed we do that. And now I'm kind of like, oh, it starts early in this education system. This goes beyond just higher ed. This is, we start this process back in K through 12. It's wild. It's wild. Okay. So this all sounds really great. And so I'm sure listeners are like, this sounds cool. How does this, what's kind of the stickiness of this? How does this look in practice, right? So students apply, they email Tom, they say, hey, Tom, I would love to be part of this program. You have a conversation. What comes next?
In terms of the students, like for them, once we've identified who's going to be hired and they've gone through the hiring process itself, which is no small feat at our institution, and another one of those series of barriers that we've kind of identified a little bit, we will bring them together in weekly meetings. And in our first one, we talked a little bit about what does this program look like, the logistics. And then every week after that, as a student group, it's a little bit more training about the process. And now that we have an established program, we have this nice mix of experienced students and new students who can kind of learn from each other and bounce ideas off of each other. And there's always a flow to the semester as well. So we've just hit fall break. At this point, we're going to talk a little bit with students about, you've probably been doing and observing the same things for a little while. It's time to change it up. Find something new to focus on. Find something new to pay attention to. And that's just the student side. On the faculty side, we usually recruit a semester ahead of time. So for example, for the spring, we're recruiting our faculty right now. And as Tammy mentioned, it's voluntary. They sign up to be part of this process. We identify who they're going to be by the end of the semester so that I can play a magical game of scheduling Tetris, try to get everyone's schedules to work out so that 2 students can line up to observe a faculty. And then right before the semester starts, we'll meet with those faculty that are participating and do an orientation. And it took us 4 iterations to finally figure out how to get orientation right. So this has definitely been an iterative process for us, trying to get better every time we run it. And we don't meet with the faculty as much as we meet with the students. We have that orientation at the beginning and 1 required mid-semester check-in. We put some optional check-ins in as well, which so far, faculty have been very eager to participate in because I feel like they are getting a chance to share a lot about their benefit from the program and hear from others as well, which they appreciate. And then at the end, we have a celebration with everyone. We get everybody together during finals week. Cupcakes are an important part of this celebration.
Yes.
And we do some reflective looking back and celebrating what's been accomplished and just generally celebrating all the good work that has happened over the course of the semester.
I do want to add, Tom, this is for you. The way we assign our students to the faculty is based solely on schedules, class schedules. Are there any other factors that you look at?
We try not to put them in subjects that they have similarity. Sometimes schedules override that, but there's some benefit for students who are, for example, health science majors spending some time in arts and humanities or in education. That doesn't always work out because the scheduling is the hardest part. We do try to mix up different types of students and experiences in the partnerships. Sometimes students like working together and form a strong bond and request to do that. So sometimes we'll do that. So it's pretty fluid in terms of how we manage it. Was there something that you had in mind that I
No, I was just thinking of the listeners and they thinking of questions they might have had about how we assign the students with the faculty. Very first time we did it, we had 1 faculty, 1 student, but I think we did have one where we had 2 students.
Right, and that worked really well.
And that went really well. And that was part of the feedback we got from the faculty at the end of the semester was the person that had the 2 students had like a richer experience. So that's when we as a team start talking about, let's get 2 students per faculty.
I think the students do a little better in that too, because they have this partner. And especially early on, the power dynamic is still a thing. It's still there,
Yes.
even though they're not taking the course, but they have someone else who's saying the same things. And I think it helps the partnerships get going because once the relationships are established, most of them do a great job. But the other thing that it helps with is these are busy students and sometimes they're overcommit themselves and our thing is the thing that they're going to give up. So by having 2, if we lose one for some reason like that, the collaborative program can still keep going forward for that faculty member. And we're not scrambling to try to fill a vacancy. So it adds some redundancy that I think is very useful.
I was just thinking about a couple of fun things is sometimes our students will recruit other students for us, which is fantastic. I remember one of our early cohorts, we had a student who recruited her roommate to also be part of the program, which was very cool. And then the faculty will do the same. They will also recruit their peers. Like, look, I did this program. This was really cool. You get to get a student's perspective, not just, once a semester, but every week. And people will sign up that way as well.
We do allow our faculty and our students to continue beyond 1 semester if they choose to. And we have had that.
And our students will retain for as long as they want, because there's a pretty good amount of work that goes into helping train them and get them comfortable with the process. And I think there's a lot of value they can bring having been collaborators over time. And it's not that we don't want to limit faculty, but we just want to make sure that their opportunity exists for everyone. We have almost 1,000 faculty at our institution, and I would say the maximum we could do in a given semester is probably 10.
Yes,
So
more than 10.
we don't want all the slots taken up by folks that just love the program so much and want to keep doing it.
That's awesome. They're like, I just want to keep getting feedback from students. Tom, you mentioned something that's super interesting, the power dynamics here, right? Because I think when I was an undergraduate, if you would have said, give a faculty member feedback, they were on pedestals to me. They were pretty high up there. And I don't know how comfortable I would have felt being totally honest with them. So how do you guys navigate that? What do you tell them in terms of, here's the things that you should tell your instructor and don't be worried? I mean, what does that kind of preparation look like to help students feel like they can be authentic with the faculty member?
It starts in the interview. One of the questions, interview, I'll use loose air quotes for that because it's really just a conversation. But one of the questions I ask is we do a little role play where I say, observed a faculty member calling on only a certain set of students in the room. How would you give them feedback about that when there were other students that clearly wanted to respond to questions as well? And they'll do whatever, usually pretty good responses. But then after that, I always tell them the format we use in this program is, here's what I observed. Why was that happening? We kind of put it as coach them to frame it as a question of asking just like, why were you doing that? Or why was that happening? Because sometimes faculty will go, I didn't even know I was doing that. Thank you so much. And then they can talk about it. And sometimes faculty may have a legitimate reason that they just didn't explain very well. And so then that opens the door for the conversation as well. So at least initially, we try to coach the students to ask the question about what it is that they're observing, drawing on what they actually saw.
We also work with the faculty because the power dynamics are, they're influencing both parties or all parties involved here. And so we talk to the faculty about recognizing that this dynamic exists and what part they can play in minimizing the effect of the power dynamics, like how they can create a relationship with their student collaborators where they are listening and not being defensive and being willing to take that feedback and do something with it and encouraging more. I mean, the problem we have is that the faculty say the students are not critical enough. They keep telling me what a great job I'm doing. I want them to be critical.
And it's funny you bring that up because that's been a theme this semester for us is the faculty keep saying, I want more feedback. I want more critical. And I'll go into the students and be like, they want more. Like, can you give them more? And the students are like, they're just doing too good. Like I'm having a hard time finding things to be critical about. But that opens the door for us on the student side to be like, okay, we have this large list of things that you can observe. Let's go find something else that maybe that they could be doing better about.
I think there's two key things we do that minimizes the power dynamic. One is having two student collaborators, and the second is the student not being in that major, being in that department. I think that's a big thing in minimizing that power dynamic. It still exists, but I think it lessens it a little bit by not having the student in the program.
Absolutely. And I love all this because I love that you guys give them a way in which to communicate the feedback. I mean, I think about our first gen students, how many of them have even that framework, right? They probably don't even have the framework of how you would deliver feedback appropriately. So you're literally giving them an equation, solve for y, plug in your responses here. It's pretty, foolproof. So you're giving them the tools to communicate that. You're right. You're taking them out of their major so that there's no risk of, I might run into this faculty member in 2 semesters and maybe that's going to impact my grade. The part I thought about as you guys were talking and all the feedback is so good is, since this is volunteer based, do you find that the faculty who are raising their hands for this are the ones who, I don't want to say maybe don't need it, but they're the ones who are very aware of themselves as a faculty member? What I'm really trying to get here is, how do we engage the faculty? And this is just a broader question, not a Westchester conversation. We know that there are faculty who really could benefit from a program like this, but they might not be the ones raising their hands, and their feedback might be a little bit more critical from students, right? How would we start to engage those types of faculty into the process? Because they might benefit. They might be the ones who would benefit the most.
The question you ask is true for all of educational development work, because everything we do is by invitation. We do not have people most educational development programs are not for compliance. They are for people who want to engage in improving their own teaching. And so this is a question we ask all the time. For this particular program, there's a couple of strategies we use. One of them is to send people invitations. So if we've heard of somebody who has a particular struggle in their class, one of us, if we have a relationship with that faculty member, we will write saying, there's a program that you might be interested in. We have some slots available if you want to come. We're very careful in how we word this, because it's never like, we heard that you have a struggle, come see us. It's very much a warm invitation. If you want to engage, we will make sure you get a spot. So that's one way. We've got some people that we knew had some challenges.
I think we've had faculty who have been very engaged in looking at the student evaluations and know that there are some issues, so to speak, with students being successful in their classes, and want to dig a little deeper and find out what's going on. And that's really nice to get those faculty. Certainly we want more. In my role here on our campus, we are starting to do some more of that work at the college level around retention and data and all of those kinds of things. So departments can take a closer look at that and look at their courses and their curriculums and those kinds of things. I think that will help us get those folks who, may not always raise their hand to participate in something like this.
I will say, though, that Westchester is the culture of Westchester is we are very proudly a teaching university, right? Like that is part of the history of the university and something we really take pride in. And so it's not hard to engage people at Westchester University to do these things, because we are always talking about teaching, and we're always talking about how to reach all our students. Like, we are a high access university, and so we know that. And so people are always thinking about how do we best support our students. So I think the culture of our university helps quite a bit. And to that point, I'll tell you that we even have, like in this current cohort of faculty collaborators, we have 2 adjunct collaborators. That's not something like, so those are people that are investing in teaching development who are not even paid full time to do it, So I think some of it is our program, yes, but a lot of it is also the university.
We asked faculty, I believe, on the application, what is it they want to explore? What do they want to look at? And sometimes it's not always just related to the student success piece of it, but just to learn more, I love our check-ins, because we get to hear from the faculty what they're learning week by week. And that why question is a big one. And it is really allowing our faculty to just turn the mirror around and do reflection and say, why have I been doing this the last 10 years? Or I didn't realize I spoke so fast. Or our student has brought them some really good information around new technology that maybe they hadn't thought about. And so it's a lot of those kinds of things that are happening as well. And to hear our faculty share that in our check-ins is wonderful.
Absolutely. And I actually printed out some of the feedback, the student advice. So Tom, you sent a link to me. I'm going to put the link in the description here for the people listening. But I printed out some of this feedback that students gave to faculty. because it's so good and it's so simple, right? Some of these things are, guys, like, give grace to students. You never know what is going on outside of the course. Remember that students have other classes too. Be mindful of the work you are assigning, right? Nothing can be too explicit for students when it comes to communication. Over communicate through multiple mediums. Say it in class, post it on D2L, and email it. Like, and there's lots. I just read 3, but it's gold. It's true. I have to dig through Reddit to get this type of feedback from students. You guys are just getting it handed to you directly. But my question is like, for each of you guys, what is something that a student has said that has just really stuck with each of you? Or a lesson that they've taken, what is something that has come out of this that has really maybe like reinforced we're on the right track, or this is probably something that can be applied universally to kind of all, like, what's something really meaningful that personally has felt like it has come out of it for each of you?
I don't teach on a regular basis, so the opportunity to work with the students each week gives me that touch point and interaction that really scratches an itch for myself as someone who would say I'm a teacher at heart. Um, and in particular, it's things like one of our collaborators, this was their first job. And acknowledging that and being able to help and work through that. And like, I'm going to be very sad to see that individual graduate in the spring. And then just last week, another one of our collaborators who is graduating at the end of this semester was expressing like his sadness about not being able to continue to participate in the program. And so seeing that impact on students that you get to have by running a program like this. And there's so many examples of that. They're a better understanding of just how the university works and how faculty teach, and like kind of removing some of the curtain of what goes behind the instruction in the classroom that has allowed them to be better students overall. So those aspects of belonging and improved academic performance and just the ways that you can help people be better people in the world. I love all aspects of it.
Mhm. I will piggyback on what you're saying, Tom. One of the things that stands out to me was one of our students saying they were working with a faculty member who would ask students something. I can't remember what it was exactly. And he said that, seeing that faculty member do that made him realize that, wait, he can ask for those things in the other classes he takes. He didn't realize until then that this was an option for him, that he can go and request for those things. So, for students who may come from more resourced or privileged educational backgrounds, these are things that we can take for granted. But we have many students who do not come from those backgrounds. And so that's something that really sticks out to me. The other thing that sticks out to me that we often hear the students say is, well, 2 things. One is that they never realized how much work and thought faculty put into preparing for sessions. I think, and I'm like, oh, of course. I mean, how would they know that faculty spend so much time thinking about what they are going to do? They probably think that the faculty just walk into class and start teaching. And then the second thing is that faculty are humans too. Like they always say that when we have the wrap up activity, that they they don't see them as human beings with things outside of the classroom, but through this experience they start to see the humanity or the humanness of their instructors.
I like to say I get joy from both sides of this program because as a faculty member in the College of Health Sciences, I think we've had at least one faculty member from my college participate every semester that we've run it.
That's true.
And they see me in the hallway or come by my office and talk about this experience for them and changes they've made in that class and the other classes. And I had one faculty member say to me one semester, this is the best professional development they've engaged in quite some time. On the student side, working with a number of the students that's been part of this, it's that that empowerment piece is huge for them. These are students, some of them, who have gone through some adversity. And so to be able to now have a lens where they can share some of those barriers to learning that they've experienced with a faculty member by things that they're seeing and observing in their class has just been so valuable and so incredible for them. So for me to be able to work with both groups here at the institution is something that I just wholeheartedly enjoy.
These are all so good. These are all so good. I hope that people who are listening are like, we want to do this at our school. We want to do this. And if they do, I know we have to kind of wrap up, but this is my final question for each of you. What advice would you give if someone is listening to this and they're like, we should be doing something like this at our institution? Maybe it looks different because maybe they're an online institution or, they would have different variables. But what would be looking back at it a couple of years later, what would be a piece of advice that you would give someone who wants to do something like this at their school?
Don't do it on your own.
I was gonna say,
I like this. I love working with Tom and Tammy on this. They bring different perspectives to it. I don't think that our program would be what it was if I was trying to do it on my own, or if either of you were trying to do it on your own, it would look very different. It is more manageable because it is the three of us. And so I would say if you want to start a program, first start by identifying some allies or collaborators that you can work with to develop the program.
it took us 4 semesters to figure out that we really did need to do a substantial faculty orientation before it started. And that would be a piece of advice, is just making sure you orient your faculty correctly to what this program looks like. And if you're interested in that, I know Naomi and Tammy are going to be presenting about that at POD's conference this November. So there'll be some stuff in the world to pick up on that. That would probably be the one piece of advice after. Find yourself a good team of people to do it with.
My advice would be, I think this unit, this office, this teaching and learning, like, it is the place for something like this to happen. I think our faculty respects that. I think it gives it enormous credibility. I really do. And I think having the folks that are here with the experience, with the perspective, with the insight, with the connection to the students, as well as the faculty, I think just makes for a really good program. We've been able to get in front of our deans and promote this across our campus with other audiences across our campus, that can help us with both student and faculty recruitment. And so, yeah, that would be my advice.
I'll throw one more thing in. It's been very iterative for us. Each semester, there's things that we're tweaking and getting better. And I would say this is probably the first time out. And I always knock on wood when I say this, because invariably something will go wrong after I say it. But this has probably been our smoothest.
This is not moving.
Shucks. This has been our smoothest semester because we have kind of kept working at it and trying to improve the processes and set it up. And we've also built a base of students at this point. That's a part that takes a little while, is building up a set of student collaborators where they're passing on traditions, and it's not the staffing side trying to retrain every time.
And the last thing I would add is for somebody thinking about starting this, note that there's a community out there outside of your institution that's doing this work. So look for us. We're out there. If you Google, you will find some people and reach out to people and say, I want to talk about this, to get some ideas.
I'm so grateful for you guys. Tom, Tammy, Naomi. You guys. Yeah. Naomi, do you call them Tommy? Just like combine their names and you're like, hey, Tommy, I'm referring to both of you guys.
No, I say Tammy, Tom, and Tayomi, just to make things a little easier.
Yeah. You're kind of the outlier there with Tom and Tammy.
Yeah.
But thank you guys so much for being here. I love the work that you guys are doing. It's so good. And I hope, if nothing else, that people who are listening to this are like, we should do something like this. And it triggers a little bit of a spark for them to start collecting maybe some names of people within their institution who are like-minded. But I think what you've given us today is really practical advice on how you can just start small. You don't have to start big. You don't need a program of 200 people. You can start small and just recruit one by one by one, and slowly but surely you'll start building it. So thank you guys all so much for being here. For those who are listening, there is a link in the description that has just some podcasts, some advice that students have given for faculty, just really strong kind of representation of the program that you can kind of dig through. I know, Tom, I had a great time looking through this link and just seeing, what did students say? What did faculty say? What are people saying on the podcast? And so that inspired me as well. So that link is in the comments. All of your guys will be linked as well. So I just, again, thank you guys all so much for being here. And I hope to continue the dialogue of how this transforms at Westchester.
Thank you for inviting us. This has been great to tell our story.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
And thank you, Tammy, for connecting us to Nicole.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Awesome. And to our listeners, thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next time.